how we're going to proceed for this town hall. Right now, you're all on mute to prevent overlapping noise and voices. What we're going to do is, if you'd like to ask a question, which we encourage you all to ask questions, we'd like it if you would, if you're on a laptop, go under participants, and if you click on participants in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a function to raise your hand. Please click that if you'd like to ask a question. If you're on your iPhone or your Android, there's going to be a more button, and if you could click that, you're going to see a function then to raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, I will call on you and unmute you so you could ask your question. And if you have any questions throughout the town hall, please feel free to message me. With that said and done, I would like to introduce the congressman. Congressman.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? I want to thank you all for joining me. I am Congressman Gil Cisneros, and this is the Rowland Heights In Your City Town Hall. Over the next hour, I'll do my best to answer your questions, as many as I can get to. I'm here to talk about the coronavirus pandemic, the federal government's response, and answer your questions live. On my website, you'll be able to find information, resources, and frequently asked questions on the crisis. As more people continue to join the town hall, I just want to take a moment and talk to you about the work that my team and I have been doing for the 39th district. We've been able to respond to nearly 1,000 calls and voicemails throughout this crisis from constituents who needed help and support. If you've made a call or you sent us an email and you haven't heard back yet, please be patient. We are answering all emails and all phone calls, like I said, but we are prioritizing those that need help and support right away, making them first in line. But we will get back to you. We've been able to bring back $131 million in coronavirus aid to the district for our cities, counties, health centers, students, universities, and colleges. Congress has passed 5 bipartisan coronavirus response bills aimed at supporting our workers, families, healthcare workers, and small businesses. As well, the first one provided $8.3 billion in emergency supplemental funding to combat the epidemic, including funding for research and development, local and state health agencies, and small businesses. The second one was designed to expand sick leave policies, strengthen testing, and support small businesses. The third bill, the CARES Act, provided economic relief and to both our small businesses and supported our workers that were affected by the coronavirus. The fourth bill included additional funding for hospitals, healthcare workers, testing, and small businesses. Last Friday, the House of Representatives passed our 5th bill, the HEROES Act, which will provide more economic relief to our cities and our states, small businesses and workers, and more money for testing as well. So I know you all have a lot of questions, so why don't we go ahead and get to it? Who's our first question, Karina?
I don't see any hands raised. Just to reiterate, I do see two hands raised. Okay, so I'm going to start with Data Tech Corporation. I'm going to unmute you. If you could please introduce yourself by name.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Mark Kantrowitz. And Gil, I want to first of all thank you and your staff. You guys have been tremendous within the last month. And on behalf of my family and my business, we know how much you've gone to bat for us. I've been in contact with a number of your staff members who have been responsive and communicative, which has been a big strain off our back, because we're getting that kind of two-way communication that we really are desperately in need of, especially as a small business owner. When the PPP program first came out, it was like hit and miss. Nothing was going on with the banks, and your staff members took the bull by the horns and on a daily basis communicated with me and my staff. That was really tremendous. So please give a shout out to your guys. My question regarding the coronavirus and what Congress can do for us at this point centers around mortgages. Mm-hmm. So what you guys have passed thus far have been good, to keep positive note on this. you passed the fact that the anything that's federally backed, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed mortgages can be forborne on the back end or deferment of the mortgage payment, which is great for those that have federally backed mortgages. For those of us that are mortgages with Citibank and Wells Fargo and are not federally backed, you know, we need the same, nothing more, nothing less, just the same bit of legislation passed to help to put the banks on the onus to let us forbear to the end of the mortgage period as well. I'm not asking for a gift here, you know, we're not asking for the moon, but we need cash flow relief really bad, because in a lot of circumstances, the PPP money is going to run out within the next 3 to 4 weeks because we have to do it within an 8-week stint. And that's the second part of my question is, what can we do to help extend that part of the requirements for the PPP spending, such that 8 weeks is a very, very, very short period of time. You know, it would be more beneficial if I could have kept the payroll and strung it out. My employees would be very happy just to get 50% of nothing. 50% of something is better than 50% of nothing, you know? So that's the mindset everybody's at these days. So I'll shut up now and let you respond.
Well, thank you, Mark. First of all, I really just want to say thank you for the great comments about my team. I really do appreciate those. And I know my team really appreciates your comments as well. They've been working, you know, nonstop, really going above and beyond and really doing the work to make sure that all the constituents in the 39th are served. And so I really appreciate it. And I know they appreciate your comments as well. You know, first of all, the HEROES Act that we passed last Friday in the House of Representatives will make some changes that you have just asked for. First, as far as the PPP goes, like you said, it's originally it was only for 8 weeks. The HEROES Act would carry that out on to the end of the year throughout December. And so that would give you more time in order to, like you said, to use those funds and to kind of ramp up your business again, and hopefully as the country opens up. So that would take care of that. Also in the HEROES Act, $75 billion was set aside for homeowner assistance. Homeowners struggling to afford their housing, their mortgages due to the COVID virus. That money would be able to provide assistance, you know, with mortgage payments and property tax. So the HEROES Act is providing for those two things that you asked for. And so we understand, you know, it's hard right now. I know a lot of families are struggling. And so, you know, the HEROES Act would help provide some of that relief that you just asked for.
Great, thank you so much for that question. Karina, who do we have next?
I see we have a question from David Malkin. David, I have unmuted you. Please feel free to ask your question.
First of all, I want to thank Karina for inviting us for this and for setting this up. It's very helpful to get input directly from the congressman. I'm currently the president of the Rowland Unified School Board, and everybody's been reading in the paper about the hits that education is going to be getting as far as their budget's concerned. Our concern is that we're going to get a hit in multiple ways. One is our budget for education, but the others is for the PPE that's required for keeping the classrooms clean, for personal protection for the teachers and staff, and for the students and their families. And the cost that's involved in that is not reimbursable right now. And then the long distance teaching via the internet, the technology, the laptops, the modems. Many of our students don't have modems at home. We had to furnish modems for them. We had to furnish laptops for them. So there's an additional cost as a result of this. And it's still unknown what's going to happen when school opens. We won't have traditional school anymore because of the classrooms. There's no way we can get personal distance in a classroom. So we're gonna have to totally change how we configure teaching and how many students are in a classroom. All of this is going to add additional cost. In addition to that, as you might have heard, during the last couple of months, we've been providing grab-and-go meals of lunch and breakfast to the students while they've been out of school. And that's been an additional cost for the grab-and-go lunch. So cut it short, is there any funding in the pipeline for schools to help reimburse them for these additional costs?
Thank you for the question, David. It's good to see you again. Hope you and your family are doing well. You're right. Schools are not going to be the same as they were before. It's going to be a different normal than from what we remember when schools were let out. Class sizes are going to need to be smaller. Children are going to be more spread out in the classroom. They're talking, about they may not be able to go out for recess. Lunch may be inside. There's going to be a lot of changes in our schools. We've been on several calls. We've been talking about this all the time, talking with our chairman of the Education and Labor Committee, Bobby Scott, about this. And I've been advocating and will continue to advocate that we need to fund our schools. We were on a call with the governor and he asked for funding for this. We're going to need more funding for our schools as well. The HEROES Act would provide $100 billion to support K through 12 education so that we can so that school districts like yours could do those changes that need to be made, right? Have the material to buy or have the money to buy the PPE and, and hire more teachers so you can increase, the number of classrooms that you can open up because class sizes are going to be smaller. The other thing that has really been exposed during this whole pandemic, and then we already kind of knew it was there. We talk about the achievement gap all the time, but really there's a digital gap also, and it's really been exposed during this. Like you said, so many children don't have access to high-speed internet. They don't have access to a computer, and school districts like yours and other school districts throughout the 39th have really, stepped up and really gone out and purchased hotspots and given these children computers so they can go and continue their studies while they're at home. And so I want to thank you for doing that. But, this is really one of those programs now that we're talking about. And I know Chairman of the Special Select Committee on Coronavirus, Jim Clyburn, has really been talking about how we need to expand and make internet available throughout the country for everybody and really, kind of create these hotspots throughout the country. And almost like, our high-speed broadband should become a public utility, just like electricity is or water is. And this is a thing that we need to do, and we need to make sure that we provide the funding so that that can happen. But I'm advocating for more money for education. Like I said, the HEROES Act would include $100 billion, but we can't expect our school districts to do this on their own. Right now, families are struggling. People are struggling to pay their mortgages. We know a lot of our education budget depends on property tax. And so we're going to have to be able to kind of help fill that gap. And it's going to happen at the national level. And we got to be able to provide those fundings so that these changes can be made and that we do the work to make sure that not only our students are safe, but our teachers are safe, our administrators, all the faculty there that work at our schools throughout the country.
Thank you, David, for that question. Karina, who do we have next?
I have here a name, Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor, that's the name that's showing up. I will unmute you. Please feel free to ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Congressman Cisneros, for this town hall forum. And I appreciate your service to this community. I am a constituent in your district. I am a classroom teacher. I do teach in the Linwood Unified School District. And I'm going to come from a different angle. I am a 24-year veteran in the classroom and was recently honored as one of the 45 Los Angeles County Teachers of the Year for 2019-2020 school year. And with that, I want to go into saying that with the total change of going into distance education back in March,
Mhm.
teachers, we were scrambling to find an online platform. We're all on platforms now in this new
Right.
reality. With that, I placed my classroom in Khan Academy. And I found it very interesting that that following week, Sal Khan, who was the CEO of Khan
Mhm.
Academy, had a live stream with Bill Gates, the
Uh-huh.
Microsoft magnate.
Right.
And so I tuned into that live stream. It's on YouTube. You can still find it. It's on YouTube. And so I thought he was going to discuss, education and technology, how things are going to be looking going forward. However, I was quite compelled and shocked at the topic that he was talking about on this particular live stream. And he was talking pretty much about the whole coronavirus, the shutdown. He referred to it as the extreme shutdown. And he said verbatim that society will not go back to normal until a vaccine is found. I took notes.
Mhm.
And I was very disturbed at hearing this. I know his foundation has been involved over the past decade for finding vaccines for various diseases. And as a matter of fact, at the same time in 2010, that his Gates Foundation started a vaccine leadership council, of which Dr. Fauci was a part of. At that same time, the CDC also initiated, and I'm holding this up here, a social distancing law template. They actually did a trial run of how social distancing as a mandate would, how that would go forth. And they did it with various states, 17 states. I find these two elements very, very coincidental, more than a coincidence. With his foundation, they had a 10-year timeline, 2010, here it is 2020. And now the world is engrossed in this coronavirus pandemic. There are a lot of theories out there floating around whether or not this pandemic was, started out of a laboratory. And so as a teacher, I teach my students about the importance of digging deeper, closed reading. That's one of the Common Core strategies that I teach my students. So, I took those strategies upon myself as an educator and even more so as a citizen concerned about what's happening in the world. And I'm just connecting the dots myself. And I'm just wondering, with that, are you aware if there's anyone in Congress, in the Senate, that may be questioning or maybe considering some type of congressional investigation as to how this pandemic started? If in fact, was it something that was, whether deliberately or not, but was it something that was laboratory created and just, dispersed, starting in China and then just exponentially increasing throughout the world? And now here we are under this, terrible calamity.
So here's what we know about the virus, right? And we're learning more every day. There is a select committee on the coronavirus that the House of Representatives has stood up. Jim Clyburn, again from South Carolina, is chairing that committee. His counterpart on the Republican side is the ranking member on that committee. So it is a bipartisan committee that's looking into coronavirus issues. But what we know about the virus and what all the intelligence is telling us is that it did start in Wuhan, China, but it wasn't started in a laboratory. It was started through the wet markets there, where animals, it was passed on from animals into humans. And that is, been a common thing throughout the history of viruses, how viruses have moved on from animals into humans. And so that's what we know really about how it was started and where it was started. We know, look, China wasn't being very upfront at the beginning as to what was going on. you know, they had to, eventually they had to kind of, as it started to get out, they had to kind of put out the information on there. But, you know, everything that we have, all the intelligence that we have, none of it is showing to it starting in a lab. And it's all been started because of a human, I mean, because of an animal passing their virus onto a human, which has, you know, been very common throughout our history of viruses. And, you know, and Bill Gates, I will say, just, you know, he came and he talked to the Democratic caucus a few weeks ago, him and Melinda Gates, talking about the work that they're doing. But, you know, it is important for us to go and to find a cure, a vaccine and a treatment for the coronavirus, for COVID-19. Those are two things that are going to have to happen in order to us to get to basically, hopefully, life as we remember it being before, where people can move freely without having to wear a mask, and being able to go where they want, and having sporting events with live audiences. You know, those are two crucial pieces that are going to need to be in place in order for us to open up the country back to where it was before. You know, we talked about the modifications kind of in schools. There's going to be other modifications as well. You know, as we kind of move in this, you know, we are going to have to get to a point, as long as here in California, the governor has sent out phases that we need to meet. Right now, most of the state is moving into phase 2, which we are starting to open up some businesses. Eventually we'll move into phase 3, and then in phase 4 is when we can start doing more mass gatherings, or where children, you know, can go back to school. There may be sporting events. It might even be with a limited number of people, and people may be further spread out. You know, the vaccine is important, and the treatment is important in order for us to move forward to get back to life to normal.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for that question. Karina, next, who do we have for the next question?
Thanks, Erica. For the next question, we have Yang Yang. I am taking you off mute. Please feel free to ask your questions.
Hi, so thanks for these opportunities. I just have a quick question. So, I'm a manager from a small restaurant. As
Right.
COVID-19 is still like greatly impacting small business, especially for restaurant owners. So I just have a question regarding the rental fees. Is the government going to like force a policy to help like small business owner to survive by like reducing the rental fees?
You know, there's not a policy right now to reduce rental fees for small businesses. That's, you know, something the federal government doesn't really have the power to say that now what you're renting from the owner of the property to say, you know, like, and this is just an example, your rent may be, you know, $2,000, now it's $1,000. They can't do that, right? They can make some adjustments, but one of the things that we have done really for small businesses is we provided the PPP loans as well as the EIDL loans for emergencies. If your business needs help and support, we're more than happy to help you out, and I'll give you our number, 714-459-4575. You can call our office, you can talk to somebody in there, and we will put you in touch with the resources there that can help you out. The Small Business Development Center located in Fullerton in the 39th District has been very supportive and helpful for us and for our businesses in the area, in helping them to connect and walking them through the process. But, you know, the HEROES Act will provide an additional $10 billion for the EIDL program to help our small businesses.
Great. I additionally want to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize, I believe he already asked a question, but Mr. David Malkin, he's president of Board of Education here for the city of Rowland, for Rowland Unified, excuse me. And additionally, Denise Jackman is the president of Rowland Heights Coordinating Council. So thank you so much for joining us today on our town hall. Karina, do we have any other questions?
Thanks, Erica. Thanks, Erica, for that announcement. Yes, I see a question from Ting-Yu. Ting-Yu, I'm going to take you off mute. Ting-Yu, please feel free to ask your question.
Thank you for the Karina and the congressman to give me an opportunity to ask a question. My husband and I are self-employment, so we do our travel business to Airbnb vacation rental. We rent a few apartments from the same company. So since 2016, so we do our business is well, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, but where our guests cancel their reservation by the Airbnb, the forced to with full refund. So right now we don't have the guests and then we don't have the income, but we still need to pay the few apartments rent. So a month, 1 month about the 30,000. So we asked the company to, so which is the rent our apartments that company. So ask them to is possible to early terminate the contract, the leasing contract, but they declined and they told us no discount for us during the pandemic, and we are bounded to pay all the rent fee. So my question is there any way we can early terminate the leasing contract, and what kind of supports we can get?
You know, you have a very special situation there, right? So what I would ask you to do is again, I'm going to give out the number to our office, 714-459-4575, and you can talk to somebody in my office and we can get more details and we can find out how we can support you and put you in touch with, again, the SBDC, who's been a great asset and resource for us in helping our small businesses in the community. But, you know, we've enacted, you know, policies and provided funding to help low-income renters. But, you know, I don't know if that's going to help you or be able to help you as well. So I think it's important for you to call our office, and you can talk to somebody and somebody will reach out to you, and we can talk about and see how we can help you.
Thank you, Ying-Yu, for your question. Karina, who do we have next?
Thanks, Erica. I see we have a question from Denise. Denise, I am struggling to unmute. Denise, please feel free to ask your question.
Denise, I believe you're still on mute. We see you talking.
Is that better?
I can hear you. Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for putting this together. I appreciate the time that you're taking to do this. California is famous for diverting funds received in bonds and propositions that we've previously passed and diverting those funds into other projects and neglecting the actual use for what those bonds were actually put forth for a purpose. For example, the lotto money that the schools get, the state of California takes that money out of their budget, and it's a net zero effect for the schools, so they're not winning anything for the lotto funds.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually just becoming a zero net effect. One of the questions that I have is, the governor of California has said that they're going to be funding undocumented workers with $125 million. How can you guarantee that the funds that are coming from the federal government to the state of California are actually being used for that purpose, and the state isn't withdrawing those same funds to use elsewhere within their state budget?
Well, first of all, I'll answer the education question, right, in regards to the lottery. And that's been a problem for a long time, even before the pandemic. And I think it's, the lottery was created to help supplement education in the state of California. That's why they did it. And I think the legislature has always done a bad job of just kind of taking out, if like, oh, the lottery's contributing like $200 million to education this year, so we can do $200 million less in the state budget into education. That's not the way it was intended to be, and I think it's very unfortunate that's the way that they've done it. And I've always been very vocal that they need to go back to the way that it was intended to be. The money that we are giving to the states, like I said, the heroes, well, the stimulus packages that we've supported before have already gone. Some of that money has gone to the state. All that money has been strictly required by the Treasury Department, who wrote very strict specifications. And this is money that's already been allocated in the previous bills. If it's not COVID-19 related, as far as going into medical expenses or into other things, really, our states and our counties who got that money can't use it for anything else. This is one of the reasons why I've been fighting for flexibility, to give our things the flexibility so they can use that money, that it'll trickle down, money that does get down to our counties and our cities, that money can be used to support public safety, which is the big thing that, all our city managers, all our counties are saying that the majority of their budget goes to. And if they don't get additional help, additional support, they're going to have to make cuts to our fire and to our police departments. And so, I will continue advocating for that flexibility. One of the things that we've done in the HERO Act is to really make sure that all taxpayers, everybody who's paying taxes, should get access to a stimulus check and support like everybody else. And I think that's only fair. And a lot of these people are working on the front lines, doing a lot of the work, helping to put food on our tables. And so, unfortunately, a lot of them are kind of cut out, but, we'll keep advocating for that to make sure that those individuals can get some support as well.
Thank you, Denise, for that question. Karina, I'm going to kick it back to you for the next question.
Thanks, Erica. I see a question from David Malkin. David, please feel free to ask your question.
You just mentioned this recently in the last question, that all taxpayers should be recipients of this supports. Mm-hmm. And tell me if I'm wrong in the way I'm seeing it. It seems like that there's attempts when these bills are passed to support individuals or families or even states, that if you're not a citizen or a legal resident, that you're not eligible to collect that money, such as like DACA students or people that are married to a non-resident, non-citizen, mm-hmm. or states that treat immigrants differently than other states. I'll put it that way. Many of those people are paying taxes, right, yet they're being blocked from receiving that money. Mm-hmm. Am I saying that correctly or not?
No, there are. So, one of the things that happened in the CARES Act was that, U.S. citizens who pay money, who might be married to somebody who is not a citizen, was barred from getting, receiving a stimulus check. We have a lot of people, people tend to always think, oh, it's the undocumented, but, we have people, I have friends that in the military that have spouses that aren't citizens, that are foreigners, and because of this legislation, those individuals weren't able to get the tax, able to get a stimulus check because their spouse may be using ITIN in order to pay their taxes if they're working here in the country. And so, these are things that, we're trying to clear up some of those holes, but there's a lot of people there, those mixed families. There's, U.S. citizen children, who are U.S. citizens that are working, whether they might be in college or in high school, that weren't eligible to get a stimulus check. The other thing that we did in the HEROES Act too, and this is for everybody, is that anybody, in the original CARES Act, you got $500 per child under the age of 17. We raised that up to I believe the age of 24. So if you're claiming your child who's going to college, so that you can claim them as well and get the stimulus check for them. But there are individuals out there, U.S. citizens and other people who are paying taxes that need and should be getting stimulus checks and getting support.
Thank you for that question. Karina, I'm gonna kick it back to you really quick.
I don't currently see any hands raised. Just to reiterate, if you'd like to ask a question, if you're on your laptop, please click on participants, and you'll see in the lower right hand corner appear an icon for you to click raise hand. And if you're on your iPhone or Android or smartphone, you can click on more and then click on raise hand. Is there anybody else? I can't see any hands raised. All right, Erica, I'll kick it back to you. And if there's people who raise their hands, I will ask. Actually, I do see a hand raised from Denise. I will take you off mute. Hi, Denise. Please feel free to ask your question.
Hi, again, sorry. I have one more question regarding Project Room Key in our community. It's a state program emergency order that Gavin Newsom put into effect. Everybody has been talking about how the testing for COVID is becoming easier and easier to come by. However, we are not able to, we have a hotel within our community, Rowland Heights, that is housing approximately 90 people that were homeless and is now required to be in a shelter based on the emergency order. Our community has asked the county to have each one of those individuals tested with an actual test, and we've been denied that request. Is there anything that your office or you can do specifically to get those people tested with that actual test prior to being put into that hotel to preserve the community so that they don't get in contact with anybody who may have that virus?
Right. So, the whole Project Room Key, the idea was to get homeless individuals off the streets into shelter, because on the street, if they became infected, they were just more likely to take it, the virus, and pass it on to others, because there was really no social distancing going on and no way to really enforce it for those that are homeless. So the idea was to take these individuals, put them in the shelter where they could be, follow the CDC guidelines, where they would be able to social distance. They would be given shelter where they could stay safe, and they wouldn't be able to really come in contact with other individuals who might have the virus, and therefore not be able to pass it on to other people as well. The individuals are screened, but you're right, they're not tested. But those that do show symptoms, fevers, or whatever those symptoms may be, are immediately taken and moved to another facility, which is in Pomona. So, this is a 3-month program. This is something that the Board of Supervisors had been working on, and really we're glad to get these individuals off the street. And really, it is, it may not seem like it, but it is safer to get them into shelter, off the street, where they can be protected and really kept away from other individuals who might be infected, and so that they're not passing it on to other people. And so, but we're fighting for more testing, everywhere, in California and really all over the country. LA has made it a policy where they've increased their testing. Here in Orange County, which is the other part of the district, I've been a big, putting pressure on the county there that they need to rev up their testing program because it's fallen behind basically, all the other surrounding counties, Riverside, Los Angeles, San Diego. And so, but testing is one of those key things that we are going to need to be able to do in order to move on to the different phases. And, we got to get to a situation where we can be able to do testing and give anybody a test who needs a test or who they feel needs a test, and not, have to only hold it for certain individuals. We got to be able to get to a point where we can test our frontline workers that are out there helping us and helping, whether it be they're working in a hospital or they're working in a grocery store or they're first responders. We need to be able to test these individuals on a regular basis to make sure, and we're just not really at that point now, but Congress has supplied the funding. I know there's still a shortage of supplies. When I talk to the people in Orange County, they're still trying to get swabs and PPE so they can rev up their testing program. But these are all issues we are working on and we are contributing funding to. There's bills in the House of Representatives and in Congress to really dedicate, materials being made here in the United States, whether it be these N95 masks or swabs or other PPE equipment that needs to be made, so we don't have to rely on a foreign country to provide these items to us. And so, these are items that I'm supporting. These are bills that I'm supporting, and I'll keep advocating for that.
Thank you so much for that question. Congressman, we did get some questions written in, with the first one being, what is the estimated month when the state will be able to move into phase 4? And when do you think will be fully reopened?
I am not going to put a guess on that as to when we'll be into phase 4, or really kind of even, try and guess when we fully reopened. I know everybody is antsy. Everybody wants to get outside and go back to life as normal. I'm a big baseball fan. I would love to be able to go to a baseball game this weekend, over Memorial Day weekend, get outside. I have 2 6-year-old twins who are basically climbing the walls, having to stay home all the time. They have energy that they want to be able to get out. They want to be able to go to the park. They want to be able to go to school, to see their friends. And so, the only thing I will say, right, and I've been saying this from the beginning, is our health and safety has got to be the top priority. And the governor has devised his plans of moving into the different phases. And right now we are starting to decline in the number of individuals who are in the hospitals and the number of cases, even though actually the number of deaths did go up, I believe yesterday here in the state of California. But, the thing we have to protect against, and this has always been the beginning, is that we don't overwhelm our medical centers and our hospitals like what was happening in New York early on. And so as long as we can avoid that, we should be able to kind of move into the different phases with the conditions, right, that we still have to follow those CDC guidelines and make sure that we're protecting ourselves. But I don't have a date on that. As far as opening up, really it's the 2 key things we're going to be able to need to do, or I should say 3 things, right, is be able to test people more often, develop a treatment, and develop a vaccine. And I believe that'll be the situation where, we can go and people will start to feel safe again and be able to get out and get back to life as normal, the normal that we remember.
Thank you. Karina, who do we have next? Who has their hand raised next?
Thanks, Erica. I see that Ms. Taylor has a question. I've taken you off mute. Please feel free to ask your question.
Thank you. The first question was just answered. I was going to ask about the timelines with regards to the implementation of the phases. My second question goes back to what you were saying about the $100 billion that is going to be given to K-12 education.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was a Toby Boyd, the president of CTA, conducted a town hall phone call the other day. And one of the issues discussed was possible, salary cuts of teachers. I don't know if there'll be any, adverse implications to any other benefits, like retirement or anything. But I want to ask you, do you know how much of that 100 billion would California get? Do you have any estimate amount as to how much of that funding would be allotted to California?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, off the top of my head, I don't remember what that number is, but we can get back to you on that. And if you want to, I can make sure my staff reaches out to you with that number, what it'll be for California. But they do have different formulas to figure this out, and really, a lot of it is based on population and the number of students that we have in school right now. But as soon as we get that information, we will get that back to you. But again, right, this is we're going to need to be able to help our schools. I know we're hearing a lot about the budget cuts, and really right now, California, because of the coronavirus, is working with the $54 billion budget deficit. And right now, as they draft budgets, they're basing all of that information on as if they're not going to get any funding from the federal government. And so there are going to be cuts to different programs into education if none of that happens. But that's why I'm working so hard in Congress to get this funding. And I've been a big advocate for getting money to our counties and cities and to education, to our schools, so we don't have to make those cuts. We don't want to have to cut teachers. We don't want to have to cut their salaries, especially when we're coming to a situation where, because of class size, smaller class sizes, we're going to have to hire more teachers. We don't want to be in a situation to where we're going to have to lay off our firemen or our policemen because of budget cuts. So I will continue to advocate for this. This money in the HEROES Act for that. That's why I was a big supporter of it. And as long as we go through this pandemic, I will continue to push that we need to provide this relief so we don't have to make those cuts.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for that question. Looks like we're coming up against the 1 hour time frame here. So Karina, who's our last question?
Thanks, Erica. This will be our last question. I see a hand raised from Data Tech Corporation. I'm taking you off mute.
Hi, Gil. Thank you for taking me off mute. This is Mark. 2 questions unrelated. Number one, I know this is a political topic and a hot topic, but what can you do, or what can all your constituents do to enforce that all of our elections are able to be held, whether by vote, by mail, by drive-through, by, being in person? We need to just, all of us, stop the politicizing of it. And we can't have, states and federal and local elections that don't take place. That's question number one. And question number two, my son asked, was, when will the home test kits be readily available for distribution?
I don't have an answer to the second question. I don't know when those home test kits will be available, or when people will be able to kind of test themselves at home, whether or not they test positive for the coronavirus or not. We're still they're still trying to work on getting the current test available. Early on, people were waiting like 5 to 7 days for results. Now they can get the results, I think, and believe about 48 hours. There were some tests out there that were, they're saying you can get done instantly, but there's been a lot of discrepancies with that, whether or not they were accurate or I believe almost like over 30% of them were inaccurate. So it wasn't a very high rate of working. So, but I know they're continuing to make changes. It's pretty incredible now. You can actually go, and this is a different thing, but the flu now they pretty much have a thing where they can find out if you have the flu or not when you go to the doctor. They just don't base it on symptoms anymore. But there is, and I didn't actually know they had this until we took one of my sons earlier in the year who tested positive for the flu. But to your second question, elections are right? We need to make sure that everybody who is eligible to vote is able to vote. This is all our civic duty. Everybody needs to vote. We should be working to make sure that people get to the polls, not discouraging them from getting to the polls. In the HEROES Act, we've allocated $3.6 billion in state grants to help them improve their election process. Here in California, we're very lucky. Pretty much everybody can vote by mail if they want to. It's a no excuse law. Over 60% of people in California choose to vote by mail. And it has really helped drive out turnout and people getting and making sure that they vote. Both in Los Angeles and in Orange County. We also have part of San Bernardino in our county, right? But they're kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. But everybody in LA and in Orange County is going to get a ballot in the mail that they can choose to fill out and mail in, and the postage would be paid. The HEROES Act, the legislation that we push forward would do the same thing, on a national basis, where people would be able to get a ballot and the postage would be paid for them. And we included funding for that to happen in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. So elections need to happen. I know some have been postponed for safety reasons, but we need to make sure that those happen. I've been in contact with our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla. I called him a couple weeks ago just to kind of find out what the plan was going to be. How are we going to accommodate those? Look, there's always going to be those individuals that want to go to the poll. I always like going to the poll. I like voting in person. This last time during the primary, because I was in DC, I actually had to vote by mail. I told the Secretary of State, how are we going to take care of those people like my father, who when I was telling them, like, hey, you can vote, you don't have to wait. You can actually fill out your ballot now and you can mail it, or you can go drop it off at one of the voting centers. My dad was like, well, why do I want to do that? The election's not till Tuesday. I'll go vote Tuesday on election day. So, they're creating plans for that. They're going to have to use bigger facilities to make sure that people are spread out and there is social distancing. That's what they're preparing for in November. But we need to make sure that everybody votes. It's our civic duty, right? And it shouldn't be politicized. Everybody here, that is a member of Congress or any politician at all that holds an elected office should be, advocating that people are able to vote, that are citizens. That is your basic right and your responsibility as a citizen of the United States is to vote in our elections, and we shouldn't make it so difficult for them to do so.
Thanks, Mark, for that question. Congressman, it looks like we're right up against the 5 o'clock hour. Any closing remarks to share?
Sure. I just want to thank you all for joining me today. I know we had it's a very small, intimate group, which is great. I thank you all for joining me, and I know some of you got to ask multiple questions, which hopefully that worked for you. But I want to thank you all for being here today and just kind of really helping me out on this town hall. Again, I want to give you my number, 714-459-4575. That is the number to our office. If you have any questions at all, or if you think of a question later that, oh, I forgot to ask this, give us a call and we will get back to you. We will answer your questions. Like we said in the opening remarks, we've been able to answer over 1,000 emails and phone calls, and we will, we will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible, but I do promise you we will get back to you. Before we end, I just want to mention one other thing that's non-COVID-19 related, and that is the 2020 census. If you haven't filled out your census, I encourage you to go and please fill it out, get it done. I did mine. It only took me about 10 minutes to complete. You can do it online now. If you choose not to do it online, you can do it on the phone as well, or you can, you can request a packet like they've always done in before, and you could take it and fill in the bubbles like they've done in the past. So there are multiple ways to fill it out, but it's important that we fill out the census. A lot of the information that we have and how we fund right now, we're sending money all over the country, to our federal programs to kind of really help out. All this information of how much to send and where we're sending it is all based on the last census. So if we are undercounted, we're going to be underfunded when we send federal dollars to the area. So it's important that you fill it out to make sure that, if we need to, we can build that new school, we can build that fire station or that police station, and really make sure that we're funding great programs such as Meals on Wheels, and the federal funding is available for these programs. So thank you again for joining me and for just taking an hour out of your day to allow me to answer your questions. Again, I really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, again, give us a call, 714-459-4575. But thanks again. Please make sure you're following the CDC guidelines, social distancing, wearing a mask if you're out in public. Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. And please continue to wash your hands. But thanks again, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.